Welcome to the Sound of Design
with Mark
and Dan
and Christian.
Hey!
This is awesome.
Absolutely fantastic. All right. Well, on today's episode, we have special guest Christian Morales with JBL Harman, and he's going to talk to us all things JBL and Harman, and a little bit about himself. We'll do some background info so you guys get to know him a little bit as well. We're also going to do some fun things. We've got some demo tracks that we're going to get into, and we're going to talk about where the high-end industry is going. We're going to hopefully touch on JBL synthesis. So we got a lot of fun things to get to. So, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm so excited.
So to start off with, maybe Christian, give me a little bit of background. How'd you get your start in AV, and kind of where you came from, and a little bit of that journey? What brought you to this point today, where you're able to rep with JBL and Harman?
Awesome, yeah. So it started many moons ago, back way into 2004. Where I actually started out in the pro space doing pro production for one of the TV channels out there, which was a ton of fun, which is where my heart still lives today, and I would love to get back into that kind of stuff at some point. But it's kind of transitioning its way there, right? So yeah, I did all their live production for shows, concerts, award shows, miscellaneous other events that they had going on, and I did that for about 4 years before I transitioned into sales, where I got to move from New York down to Miami, and started my sales career, where I got to meet you two awesome fellows, which is fantastic today. And yeah, we were really big on the premium space for sales, where we sold a lot of high-end brands and cool stuff that you guys talk about on the daily, which I really enjoy. So thank you for starting this podcast, guys. It's I think totally worth it.
I think so too, and we haven't found anything like it yet. So not to toot our own horn, but like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah. Share button.
That's it. Shameless plugs. Awesome, man.
Well, cool. Well, we appreciate you coming, man. I know that you've been working with JBL and Harman for a few years now. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, great brands. First, we should understand Harman before we understand any of the brands that fall under Harman. The biggest thing about Harman, which is what attracts me to them to begin with, I used their products when I was in pro. I loved their products when I sold it, and now I love their products because I work for them, which is wonderful. But part of the reason their products are so good is more than just the product itself, but it's all the science and research that goes into said products. Big part of it is going to be what we call Harman X, or the Harman X research team. That's what makes Harman famous. It's what makes it the global brand that it is all of the science and math and research that goes into every single product, every single thing that we do is huge, right? So it's backed by very famous people in this industry. If you guys are familiar with Dr. Floyd Toole or Dr. Sean Olive, Todd Welty's another really big one. So they are the leaders in this research program. And what's awesome is not only is it stuff that we use for our own products and our own devices, but they get to publish their work so everyone can see it. You can go online, you could research this stuff, and other manufacturers use it, other brands, other vendors, even just on the production side, they use that same science, that same research when it comes to how do I make something sound good in a room.
It's kind of like, programmers will talk about open source, right? It's like we have the code, right? And anybody has access to it. And so that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm hearing you say. Like, that's what you guys are doing is It's like, we figured this stuff out. We did, we spent the time and money and effort, but this is knowledge that everyone should have.
Yes.
And have access to.
They truly feel that they want to better the entire audio industry and, lift all boats, if you will. And that's how they do it. They put in the work, they put in the effort, and they still do it today. I know Floyd Toole is retired and he's living his life very well. But Dr. Sean Olive, who's one of the smartest guys I've ever gotten to meet in my whole life, he's super cool to talk to. He's huge into headphones right now, and that's his thing. So he's doing a lot of research right now on how to better headphones, and then spatial audio and headphones is another big to do.
we just talked with Steve Pardo on a previous episode about spatial audio, and it was a huge push, especially with VR headsets and some of those things that have kind of hit the market. It's like, yeah, like everybody's going that direction. We've seen it on Tidal, all the major streaming platforms. Everybody's going, I think, that direction. So
yeah, it's the feature of a lot of things, especially even in home theater design now too, because spatial audio for music is a good thing for surround sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a quick follow-up to that. You know, what is and this is not to get like super organizational, but kind of tell me a little bit about some of the history, because I don't think it was always Harman. I thought JBL was their own thing for a while, right? So could you tell me a little bit about maybe just the progression of how those two brands got to be the same? And I take it Harman is the parent company.
Yes.
Right. And are there other brands under that? Yeah, so that we should be aware of?
There's a ton of brands, especially when we talk about Harman Professional. The list gets longer, if you will. So I work directly for Harman Luxury.
Okay.
And essentially how Harman generally works is if they find a brand that meets their thought process, right? What meets what they do with their science and their research, and it falls under that same kind of umbrella, they say, hey, what can we do to make that brand a part of us? And they've done that with JBL. They've done that with Arcam, which is a huge one for us.
Awesome.
Right. So in the luxury space, we do have, we have Arcam, which is a great electronics company. Obviously JBL, which we're talking about a lot today. Two big ones are going to be actually Harman born and bred is Revel. So
really,
yeah, that's a fun story because when Harman acquired Mark Levinson, which is some of the best electronics out there on the market, right? Like some would say the reference point of amplification. We didn't have a product that was as accurate, if you will. So Sidney Harman went out to build Revel to match the capabilities of Mark Levinson. So we had something that went together. Side.
Okay. Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That is awesome. Well, and my favorite, so I love a lot of amplifiers. Okay. And I really do think that they all do a fantastic job. Arcam has just a ton of power. So it's like a really bold, very strong, like amazing kind of a sound. Obviously we like Mac, but there's something about when I first heard Mark Levinson where I went, oh, that's really good. I can't say that word. That is like the most, it's smooth, it's buttery, it's rich, it's detailed. It's like $1,000 steak that you get to listen to all the time. I know it sounds like a weird, analogy, but that's really like when you say reference level. And I had no idea that Revel was designed with that specific product in mind.
I didn't either.
That's pretty amazing, actually.
So if you ever get a chance to listen to like Salon 2s, for example, which are noted as some of the best speakers ever made, that was because they wanted to have something that paired with Mark Levinson well and could reproduce as accurately as possible. Today we have the BE series, which is phenomenal. I love the 328 BE is my favorite speaker under the Revel line, like by far.
Really? So tell me a little bit about it and what makes that thing, what makes that particular speaker your favorite?
Really comes down to the ability to have as much detail as possible, right? We always say we don't want things in the way, right? We don't want anything to add compression or add distortion or add noise or anything like that, right? So when you talk about Mark Levinson, that's their whole ideology is I will buy the best available product or make the best available product so that none of that comes through. So you get the full gamut of whatever audio signal is coming through. On the Revel BE side, it's exactly that, but on the producing it, right? So you're talking about the composite drivers, the ceramic composite drivers, which give you really solid, accurate bass, incredible. But really the key is going to be the beryllium driver itself, right? So beryllium is not cheap to make, right? It's also not easily obtainable. So other manufacturers use other materials for their tweeters. Beryllium for us, we find to be the most accurate. It can produce sound with high output, just like our JBL products can, with very little distortion. And it's very dense, if you will, I guess would be the right word, where it doesn't flex, it doesn't distort. It's incredibly accurate.
It's very rigid, right? And I've heard other brands that will talk about their tweeters, and I think you guys are familiar with Bowers and Wilkins, right? Like they do a nice job, but they always talk about that, kind of accuracy, by not moving, and that's kind of a weird way of saying it, but yeah,
and that's what it's about, right? Because the more flex to the driver, the more distortion you get, and we of course add a couple extra things like our wave guide and our acoustic lens, which kind of adds some compression, if you will, like not bad compression, positive compression, where
sure,
we can fill a space a lot better, but also guide the sound to exactly where we want it. We don't want it to go lost into space or be overly directive, where only one spot has the sweet spot. If we all kind of guide it so more people can listen.
Gotcha. It's like almost like a wide dispersion. So, all right, we've got a ton of brands, that you guys are supporting and represent, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think it kind of speaks to the ability for a purchaser or an enthusiast to be validated no matter what their particular strategy is. And I think that's kind of the most amazing thing. Like, we've had conversations in the past, maybe not necessarily on the show, but where we talk about audio as a personal experience, right? And it's what I like and it's what I want. And it's kind of that correct expression of selfishness, I think we've said before. And so giving people at different price points, with different ears, with different purposes, the ability to get what it is that makes sense to them, right, I think is just absolutely awesome. So that's really, 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 really cool. That's really cool.
Which is really the guiding factor behind JBL, right? And as we dig deeper into that, it's JBL is for everyone. And that's why I love the brand so much. It's genuinely for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-year-old with headphones and a little JBL clip. It doesn't matter if you are a college kid with a JBL soundbar, or maybe, 4305p studio monitors or something like that. Or, you are well off and you have a JBL synthesis theater and, or a true studio, right? Like you have a beautiful studio here, right?
Yeah.
You take really good studio monitors for that. And, maybe you are a professional and you want JBL VTX line arrays to be set up in your, concert venue. It's for every single human being. And we have a fun game where we call it, we two ways, right? It's either spot the JBL, right? Or Jibble, as we jokingly say. And I love, my friends in the vendor community, that we have a text string where we share, and it's literally like, man, Christian, you're here again. It's a fun game that we play. And the second part of that, and I like to get customers involved in this one, is what is your JBL story, right? Because everyone has a JBL story of some fashion where, maybe they had speakers because their dad, had JBL speakers in their family room or whatnot. Or maybe it's, my 1980 Camaro got JBL speakers and I went on my first date in that thing, right? So I bet you guys have JBL stories of some sort.
I do.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mark.
I mean, mine isn't that fancy, but when I first went to college, I needed a pair of speakers for, to run out of iTunes, out of my PowerBook G4.
Woo.
Apple, before Intel even got involved. But I needed something, and I just Googled like best whatever computer speakers, and this was in 2005, right? But JBL popped up first, and I'm like, oh, so I'd gone to a lot of concerts. Warped Tour was a big thing, and that was most of the line arrays that you would see. So I'm like, well, they use them at Warped Tour, so they gotta sound good, right? And they were these little bitty, pods with this funky looking subwoofer. But I had those things for until I moved here. I had.
That's awesome.
So, and they were fantastic speakers, even though they weren't what I would call fantastic today, right?
Yeah. For what they are,
they were incredible.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that they're computer speakers. So mine is actually the JBL Flip. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't want you to take offense to this, but I bought one of those for my wife so that way she could Bluetooth to it, right? And that, for people who don't know, the JBL Flip is a very small speaker. I want to say 5 or 6 inches tall, maybe 2 inches around. Not something that we would consider a premium sound. But that wasn't its purpose, right? Just I want to get something a little bit better, maybe than what my cell phone is, or what have you. So as time goes on in our house, I start putting in nicer speakers. Okay. I've spent, $3,000 over here, and I get a $2,000 power amp, and I get a really nice $2,000 processor, and I'm putting stuff in the wall, and I'm running wire, and I'm doing all these things. And I asked my wife, I was like, so what do you think of the new stereo? And she's like, well, I don't use it. I was like, what do you mean you don't use it?
Story of my life.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man. And so what does she do? She's like, she pulls out the JBL Flip, and she's like, I use this because I like it, and it works for me, and I like the way it sounds. And I was like, okay, all right. I guess $10,000 in audio doesn't mean anything to her, but the JBL Flip does. So to that point, it's like, it's for everyone.
It's true.
It is for everyone.
And I love that Flip. It's pretty much indestructible. I'm not sure how it's gone through the beatings I've put it through, throwing it in the sand at the beach at like a volleyball game. It does not matter. It survives all things. It's crazy.
Yep. So it's a JBL one. It still works. It's like it's in the other room.
My wife, that was actually her first Bluetooth speaker that she purchased as well.
Yeah.
To go to the horses, and it's actually still there now.
Yeah.
It still works. We use it every time we go over there.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a testament to the build quality. And I think going back to what you said originally, which is the R&D, right? It's the research and development. If you know what you're doing and you've gone through that hard work and you've done that process of scientifically verifying and testing and, over and over and over, well, then, yeah, of course it makes sense that when you're designing a product, whether it be this level or that level or that level, that it's going to take you the direction that it's supposed to, and you're going to get the things out of it that you want because you've tested it.
Yep.
You figured it out. It's like, it's not a question anymore. It's just, do you want it or do you not? Right. And that, I think, is a totally different place to represent a product, because you're not questioning whether or not the gear works or is it going to do what I want it to do. No, this is one of those, cases where it's like, yeah, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Everything that's on the box is going to be what it's going to be. And that's amazing, because there's so much, especially in technology, where like it might work for 6 months, or, it may work for a year, or it might work for 5 minutes. And, it's like, so I think it's truly a testament to the quality of product that you guys make at every single level. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it still blows my mind today. Every time I get to go to the office, which I hope to get you guys out at some point. It's out in Northridge, California, the Harman Experience Center, which is just outside of Los Angeles. But it's amazing to see all the Harman X guys, right? The guys who do the initial research are right there, and you get to hang out with them, you talk to them, but they can leave their little room, walk into the engineering rooms, and you have, Harman Luxury, where I'm at. Right. And then you also have Harman Pro. They work side by side because we have a lot of shared technology between each other. And it's super cool to see them come out and say, hey, look at this cool thing that I came up with. And the pro guy's like, oh, I can use this. And the luxury guy's like, wait a second, let's take that and put it here. And they're just constantly working together to build the best available product that, they can.
That they can. Well, and that's so cool, because it means that what you learn in every potential market is this constant feedback loop of improvement, right? That's amazing. That's absolutely awesome. That is absolutely fantastic.
We need to get out there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
We can make that work.
Let's have that conversation.
Yep.
It's totally worth it. The Experience Center is cool just to see in general, because you get to see everything we do on Pro and in Luxury all together at once. And the Experience Center itself has it all live set up, so you can actually use it all. Okay. You see our full array of AKG headphones, microphones, AMX, DBS, Martin lighting. The list is endless, and it's all there. You get to play with it. It's cool.
I didn't realize AKG was one of those brands.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So, man, I could just share JBL stories apparently all day.
Literally all day.
Like it just would never end. No, they made some phenomenal headphones, and we used them in school. Yeah. I kid you not. Like those were the ones that we used for a year and a half. I sat and I listened on. Like that's amazing.
It's really cool. Yeah, when you think of the power of Harman and everything we use today, right? Like we joke internally, and I say it in some of my trainings. You guys probably have heard this in a training before, but a customer drives to the movie theater to go watch, whatever movie floats their boat, or maybe they want to go see the T Swift concert in the movie theater, and they're listening to it on JBL speakers, but then they jump in their car, and chances are they're listening to it on a Harman product in their car.
Right.
And then they go home and they play it back on more Harman products, right? So we are in every facet of your life without even really realizing it.
Yeah. That's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
It's funny you bring up car audio. Like, I didn't realize that I think you told us like maybe a year or so ago that a lot of products that maybe have other brands' names on them even are possibly engineered by you. Is that correct?
Yep, that's 100% correct.
Yeah, so that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I can
a lot of big ones too.
Any brand, you name them, and it could be in some way have been researched or developed by you. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to say by me. That
specifically Christian.
It's not me, guys.
That's all right. Well, so we obviously it's a huge brand and assortment of brands is probably a more accurate way of saying it. But our focus has always really been more in the luxury or in the premium kind of space. And so if somebody was thinking about putting together a theater room or speakers for their living room or something along those lines, in that, maybe a more residential application, what are the brands and what are the things that you guys do that are specific to that space?
So especially in theater, will be around JBL Synthesis, right? So JBL and JBL Synthesis, while it's the exact same brand, they are divisions of each other, if you will.
Okay.
JBL Synthesis is more closer related to the pro space because, as you probably both know, JBL does a lot of cinema work in the commercial cinema. Right?
Yep,
so
absolutely.
I don't know, Cinemarks, AMCs, whatever. We do a lot of work in that space, and JBL Synthesis was born because the top, call it 1%ers of the world were going to these cinemas and saying, man, how do I put this in my house?
Sure.
And they were buying the commercial gear and putting it in their house. And
which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're like, money's no object.
Right.
Just give me whatever it is.
And the common sense of it was, these guys know how to do the cinema. Let me put that same brand inside my own house, right? Mm-hmm. And that still holds true today, right? And that's kind of where I'm going with is JBL Synthesis was like, oh man, we can actually do something residentially here, right? It makes sense. And back then, when they first started, they were truly taking the exact same pro technology, right? So our compression driver, which we can talk about more in a second, they said, all right, let's take this exact same thing, put it into a smaller space, right? Because I don't need to fill a huge auditorium. I'm only now filling, 250 square feet, 300 square feet,
depending on the size. Yep.
And that's how we scale, right? So we take what would normally fill a giant arena or auditorium or what have you, we scale it down. We don't change the technology. We just make it essentially smaller to fill that smaller space. And so the first Synthesis speaker was born, and then became everything else after that. But the important thing to understand about synthesis and theater design for us specifically is it's not just a speaker, right? It's not the electronics. It's not the subwoofers. It's not the room calibration. It's all things working together as one. And that's how we build everything when we design our theaters, because it allows for us to deliver the most predictable experience, right? We can guarantee the outcome, or at least know what the outcome is going to be, because we are controlling all factors of it. And hence the name synthesis, which by definition is,
all things working together.
But yeah, so that's how we go about our design process is, we will normally take, the seller would take measurements of the room, or designer would take some measurements, send us some pictures, give us, as much information as they could about the room. How, what's the seating going to look like? Are we going to do, acoustic treatments, or what are we doing with this room? And then we plug it into our little program and we, calculate cubic volume. So we know how much air to move in that room. And then we say, okay, cool. What's the customer's budget? And we will design the system to get as best air movement in that room at that budget.
Right.
So we can make sure we can do that, again, predictable experience, and predict that. I'll say, here's what I can expect SPL wise at the listening level, right? And then we come in and do a calibration afterwards so that you get no loss at that listening position, which is cool.
It's amazing. You remember Steve said this on a previous episode. Steve Pardo had mentioned that he would mix for a short time to a very specific set of headphones. It was when the VR headset came out, and he was like, there was a very sweet time because he could control the outcome. It's like that same concept again, saying like, if I know this is the space that we're supposed to be in, then I can accurately now design a system to accomplish that particular objective. It's such like, it's just the reoccurring theme. That's all I'm noticing is like, it just comes back over and over. Like I want to be able to say, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to sound. So it's very, 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 very cool.
Yep. And there's very few vendors that I know that we work with that will tell you, hey, this is exactly what you're going to get to a point, right? I mean, we've got other vendors that have helped us in the past with engineering certain systems and whatnot, but outside of here's a diagram of the output of the speaker itself, it's not really designed specifically around an entire space, right? So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I would agree with that 1,000%. And it makes perfect sense too, being that you guys have such a large assortment of brands means that you have access to the technologies at every level. And I love the way that you said it earlier, which was that it's not just electronics, but of course, electronics are part of the equation, right? Like, and a substantial one. And it's not just the speaker, but of course, that's a big part of that equation. So yeah, again, all those things working together so you can control every aspect. So it really is a true custom design that has a guaranteed output, which is so weird because you think about it, and it doesn't matter whether it's our industry or others, custom typically has an element of, well, we're going to make it work, right? Sometimes you always end up with this, well, I could do that and we could do it this way and that would be really cool and really unique and really awesome. But you never really know the outcome until you've tried it, right?
Right.
And so here you're saying the reverse. It's like, no, we know the outcome. Yeah. Like that's like we know exactly what it's going to be.
Well, and the big thing with theater is, it's a bunch of puzzle pieces, right? Like each little piece, the electronics is one puzzle piece, the speakers another, subwoofers, whatever. But you want all the puzzle pieces from the same box. You don't necessarily want a puzzle piece from 10 different boxes because is it going to give you the picture you expected? Right. When I can guarantee the box, all I got to do is put the right pieces in place and we're good.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal analogy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I really like that.
That's great. I just made it up. Just
noted. Off the cuff. Well done, Christian.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I want to say like the one of the coolest things that you demoed for us at a training last year. And I kind of want to roll this into the philosophy of how we design, right? We talked about spatial audio earlier, but there was a demo track, and maybe you were going to talk about it in a moment, but it was a spatial audio demo track that we listened to in a synthesis theater. And it was the first time that I had actually listened to spatial audio outside of headphones, and I was completely blown away. Like, I mean, I had to hold my ear at one point because I was right next to the right speaker, but it was, I could feel the sound. So when you talk about like when you're designing these systems, because I know that you assist us in some cases, what is your philosophy, or what do you like when you're designing a system to help us?
Well, I try to hit everything down to the science first, right? Before, like if I can get it matching the science all the way through, then yeah, we have a perfect world scenario, but not all rooms allow us to do that. So that's like phase one. And what's cool is I have in my program, I have everything down to the degree of where every speaker should sit, right? So, so when we decide what the room layout's going to be and where the seating arrangement is, first thing we want to pick is the main listening position. What is the MLP, as we call it? And maybe it's the seat right here, right? That's the MLP. So everything gets measured off that seat. So then now I know, all right, cool. My left, right, and center, obviously center would be centered, but left and right should be 15 to 20 degrees off from the MLP. Both sides, right? And I know where my front wide should sit. I know where my surround should sit, which a lot of people are confused whether do they sit behind you or do they sit directly here. But ideally, it would sit, yes, at 0 degree or 10 degree in front, mainly because our ears are pointed forward. They're not flat. Right. So we want it to be at that degree. Same thing for surround backs, right? They need to be 135-ish degrees on both sides. And then you have your Atmos heights need to be in proper position as well, right? So your front height should be, your front left height should be 45 degrees from the listening position. Same thing for front right, same thing for rears. And then your top middles would be right above you. And you grow the system that way. And then once you get that math laid out for the room, now we say, okay, cool. What are some weird obstacles in the room? What do we have to work around? And, obviously we plug and play around that. But one of the coolest things, which is my personal favorite, is when I don't know, I have direct access to my engineers. So I get to call them and say, hey,
gotcha,
guys, this is a weird room. I don't know what to do here. Hey, what can we do? And they will say, all right, well, if you use this specific speaker, which has the tweeter mounted at that 45 degree angle, or this speaker has tweeter mounted 15 degree angle, it'll help you overcome this. Just put it in this spot. And so we have access to all of this. So we can always predict that experience.
That's
awesome.
Amazing. Well, and I think it makes sense, to professionals to say that the room is a problem, but I don't think it necessarily makes sense to the average consumer, in the sense that you think of a room and you go, well, yeah, I mean, that's just the space I have, right? I bought the house, and so you're not really thinking about the room. I know from the pro side, and you guys obviously both know this, the room is just as much a piece of the gear as any other piece of gear, because it's physical reality, right? And so you always have to take the room into consideration first and foremost. And I know I do that with a lot of my designs. It's like you walk a space and the first thing you look at is, well, what do I have to work with? What's the room telling me that I can do or not do? And so then to have those tools to be able to say, no, that position should be here as opposed to there. I have not heard other manufacturers talk about ulterior placements. They'll go off the Dolby spec, right? They'll say like, and you know, I'm sure that you're going to be very similar or very close, but then to say, yeah, but our gear works to overcome specific room challenges means that you're going even further than what they may have recommended, which is unbelievable. Yeah, and you're right? When we talk about all those puzzle pieces, if you will, the room is another puzzle piece that needs to come together, and that's all part of synthesis as a whole. Is the last piece is always our calibration methods that we use, because that's, all right, cool, speakers need to be in the best place possible, right? We need to make sure we get as close as humanly possible before we get to the last step, which would be the calibration. And as long as everything's in place, and we have the proper overlap of speakers, because we all know what imaging is, right? We don't need to explain that, I hope.
No.
Well, you don't have to explain it to us, but just for those who are not aware, imaging is where we refer to how accurately a sound will appear in a room according to the way that it was originally intended or recorded to be. So you just imagine if you want to have a person talking at the front of a room, well, then that voice should come from the front. And so when we talk about imaging, it's that, yeah, you hear it and your ears localize where that person is, so that way you know, oh yeah, they're up at the front of the room and I hear where they are. So okay, keep going.
Yeah, so a lot of people only think imaging is important or relative to two-channel, which it is, right? Don't get me wrong, it's important. But where you have two speakers and the singer's in the center, and I want to imagine him being right in front of me or her being right in front of me, and I have a sound stage of a band. Yes, we want that. But when we talk about theater, it's that times however many speakers are in that room, right? It could be an 11-channel system, it could be a 32-channel system, and we need that image to happen between every two sets of speakers, right? So imagine, I don't know what movie we're watching, but someone's walking across the front stage. I should be able to hear their footsteps go from the right side all the way across to the left side in between the speakers. And I need that image to be true from, you know, front left to surround back left. So I need that same image between. And then I also have to do lift for Atmos heights, because the whole point of Dolby Atmos is, again, spatial audio, which is why we're circling back to what you were talking about earlier with the demo, is we want to be in a bubble of sound, if you will. We don't want those channel points anymore. It shouldn't be helicopter takes off and I hear the woof woof here and then silence and then all of a sudden it's in the ceiling. We want to hear a natural transgression to the next speaker. So placement and how that speaker disperses, right, is huge, right? That's where we have our wave guide, which helps us guide that sound to where we want it to be. Because once that's set, and then we do the calibration on top of that, then it allows us to do that spatial audio demo where you hear, you know, as I call the Tiesto tornado, go all around the room. It's really cool because you're hearing it in between speakers as well.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I think you're right to call it out, because the same principles that we took from hi-fi listening for years and years and years, right, are, you know, researched and developed. And you mentioned very briefly AES, which is the Audio Engineering Society. And I remember coming out of school, that was like the very first thing that they said. They're like, go join AES, go learn, go read, go get access to the articles, go get, you know, why? Because it's going to be applicable to every single aspect of whatever you do in audio for the rest of your life, right? So, well, all right. So we've talked a little bit about design philosophy for theaters, and for synthesis. You talked a little bit about the calibration. So I'm thinking now kind of like, where do you see in that luxury space? Let's go maybe one step up or down, but stay within kind of the JBL family. What are some of the parts or pieces that we could look at? Maybe maybe I already have an existing room, right? And I want to put something in, but I'm not really sure like what direction I should be looking. Where would you take me in the JBL family?
Yeah, I mean, we can literally go anywhere. That's the cool thing about JBL, right? We can go down to, I need to build a system using $150 speakers, or I need to build a system using $16,000 speakers. It doesn't matter, right? So really, it's what is the customer's comfort zone around budget first. That's first and foremost the thing. And JBL synthesis first has always been known as a very expensive product, right? Because it's like I told you earlier, the top 1%ers are what kind of drove into the industry. But I mean, in today's day and age, I can build a JBL synthesis theater or family theater for as low as $20,000 and still have it certified synthesis, where we're controlling everything. I can have that predictable experience, which is super cool. And it doesn't need to be a dedicated theater space. It could be an open family room. And that comes down to the calibration method in the end, right? But then we could also mix and match. If we kind of gear away from the certified synthesis conversation, we can go down. Well, first we can go into floor standing speakers with JBL HDI, which gives us the ability to do what you guys experience, which was, we call it the JBL Family Theater, where it's mixed JBL synthesis and JBL HDI, and they're mixed together because they are designed to work with one another. But we can, build around that in a normal family type atmosphere, a family room or open loft or something like that. But then we can scale now even further, into a more budget friendly atmosphere with Studio 6, which is still using a form of a compression driver, kind of similar to what we're using in HDI, just, I don't want to say lesser, just a different format.
Yep.
But it's more budget friendly, but still we can still predict that experience. And we have matching, in walls and ceilings, subwoofers, in wall subwoofers, the
list goes on.
That's the limit. Literally, it's endless. But yeah, we can literally go down to any space. It doesn't matter the type of space. It could be open floor plan. It could be a living room, family room, loft, the dedicated theater space, studio environment. It can go into anywhere. And it comes back down to the finalizing it with that calibration piece to make sure we correct for any weird abnormalities.
Could you go a little more into the compression driver? Because I've heard you mention it now like 2 or 3 times. And just kind of walk me through kind of what that concept is. Yeah.
So the compression driver is the heart and soul of our speakers, if you will. It came from Pro. That's one of the technologies that came from the Pro space that transitioned over to luxury space. So we all have been to a concert, I'd hope.
Yes.
Yep. Right. Yep. So you mentioned it earlier when you went to your concerts, the line array speakers there. So the heart of the line array speaker is what we call the D2 compression driver. And it was built for a very specific reason. So one, we know we did the science. We know what we need to happen to make it sound good in a room, right? Thank you to the Harman X team for that. The compression driver allows us to do that in any format space. It doesn't matter how big the space is. What's cool about it is the simplest way to explain is it allows for ultra high output, meaning we can get very, very loud with very minimal distortion. Right. So we can fill a big arena. We could fill a big outdoor venue. We can fill an auditorium, a cinema auditorium. We know how to do it, and we can do it with almost no distortion on the line, no matter how loud we get, which is really, really cool.
That's incredible. I just want to pause for a second and maybe say, like, imagine turning up your car stereo too loud, and what happens? Well, it gets noisy and garbage and distorted, and like you hear like it goes wonky on you because you're pushing it past its limit. And so you're saying you have a tweeter that you can push pretty much as far as you want to go, and there's no distortion.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say as far as you want to go necessarily, but your ears will bleed by the time.
So, all right. So, yeah, as far as reasonably you should go.
Yeah, a lot of it, without getting way tech specky here, is, you think of an average traditional dome tweeter has an average breakup point of around 10,000 hertz, meaning at 10,000 hertz, you're getting so much flex on the driver that it's starting to distort. Ours doesn't break up until 30,000 plus, depending on what it is, which you can't actually hear.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's like having a car that goes 200 miles an hour. Like you're going to have accuracy and precision and control at 70 miles an hour in a way that you couldn't if your car topped out at 70 miles an hour. It's going to shake and vibrate and do all the wonky things because you're pushing it to its absolute limit. Whereas what you're saying is, no, engineer the spec 3, 4, 5 times, or 100 times past what it should be used, so that way you're accurate and smooth for everything that you're going to hear.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep, and it comes down to the design of the driver itself, of course, right? We call it the V-shaped annular ring diaphragm, which no one cares what that actually means. But what it means is it's essentially shaped like an ice cream cone, right? Or the inside plug of a fire hose. And the reason for it is we all know triangle is the strongest shape. Right? That's what holds bridges up, holds buildings up. So we essentially designed the driver around that, so that breakup period or the flex in the driver can't happen.
That's awesome. Yeah. That is very, very, very cool. That bridge analogy is sweet. I'm going to, again, file it away.
Man, I'm just keep peeling these off all day.
It's great. Keep going, man.
Yeah. So, and it is cool. So the compression driver, while it is the heart and soul of the speaker for us, right, there's more to it because we can't just have all this power, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Joke.
Well done.
Right.
Points.
So we, again, imagine a fire hose, if you, right, full force, just spreading all this noise out into the field. We need to control that. So what the teams did, both on Pro and Lux, this is them working together because it's exactly the same on both, right? So you guys probably seen the M2 studio monitor,
yeah,
right? Mm-hmm. You got that cool little waveguide around the driver. Yep. So that uses that same compression driver, but we added that waveguide so we can control exactly where that sound is going. We don't want it to just go into the ether everywhere because there's something as good reflection and bad reflection. We need to control the bad reflections, if you will, and we only want to use the good reflections so we can make the sound real, like a human being in the room, right? Like let's sound like the human is there,
right?
Not synthetic or not, bounced off of a million things in the room and causing, bad reflections at that point. So it's a partnership of that Pro D2 compression driver mixed with this waveguide together gives us what we want to create, that imaging, if you will, out of the speaker.
That's amazing.
It's super cool. And then that same thing transitions to all models within the synthesis line, in the HDI line, in all the studio monitor series. It's just scaled based on size and size of room.
Yeah. Well, and it's timbre matched is what you're saying, right? So like the tone will match regardless of what combination that you have to work with, which makes it our job as a designer a lot easier because now we can, when you walk into that space, you walk into the room and you go, oh, okay, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. And I know that it's going to work the way that it's supposed to in every single case, which is, again, really, really makes our jobs a lot easier. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to bring up demo tracks?
Yeah,
I think that's a good point. So yeah, what tracks do you like to use?
There's a lot
demoing.
So I might have to pull my phone out just to go through the 100-something list. I guess let's start back to your spatial audio one, right? Because we're mainly talking about theater here, and first, spatial audio demos are going to be huge. We had briefly talked earlier about like things in the future, right? And what's coming down the line. And home cinema is not just used for cinema anymore, right? It's now used for concerts. It's used for just, Atmos recorded music, just sitting there and listening to music. And that demo track is Tiesto Boom that we love to use it because not only is it just super cool because the movement all around the room, but it's also very dynamic, right? Where I can play it screaming in your face and it doesn't hurt your ears, which is really cool about it, right? That's one of the benefits of the compression driver is because that distortion doesn't exist. You're not sitting there saying, ow, this is too loud. I mean, we played it loud in that demo, but it was still tolerable. It's maybe not for Mark because his ear was literally against the
It was. I was standing up. I was not in the proper space.
But so it's super dynamic. It's got a ton of bass, which you could feel the bass in the room, which is really cool. But most importantly is it shows off the spatial audio capabilities and how the sound moves around the room. And the reason why I'm saying that's a new and upcoming thing is a lot of artists today are starting to either record in Dolby Atmos, which is amazing, or mix and master their previous product into Dolby Atmos, which you can, obviously listen to. But beyond that, they're also starting to perform live in Dolby Atmos, which is really cool. So I don't know if you guys have seen the Dolby Atmos live theater in Vegas, not the Sphere, but they have a Dolby Atmos venue where, Maroon 5 just signed a couple-month residency there.
What?
They're going to perform in Dolby Atmos.
That's amazing.
Super cool.
I didn't know about it.
And another cool thing, which I got to experience with some of my peers, is we saw Roger Waters live. It wasn't necessarily Dolby Atmos, but it was in full surround sound in a stadium.
Oh my goodness.
Super cool. Like you think about, like the song Money, and you have like all the change dropping, the registers closing. It felt like the coins were dropping in the seats, and a massive, arena. Like it's crazy. Which a fun fact is Soundcraft, which is another one of our professional brands. It's one of the only mixing boards that does surround sound mixing.
Another JBL story. So we used Soundcraft mixers out in Los Angeles when I just gotten out of school, and I did live sound for about a year and a half in the hospitality space, and we used Soundcraft mixers. So, yeah, there's another JBL story for you.
It's endless. Everyone has one.
That's amazing,
right? Whether it's JBL or Harman or some mix of both, it's somewhere
crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so that Tiesto Boom one is a really good demo track to show off spatial audio and show customers like, hey, this is what you can do with music now, right? It's not just 2-channel. Yes, buy a good 2-channel and have that as part of your system, but now let's add to that 2-channel and take this music all around us. And I think we learned, not just us in JBL or Harman, but just in the world during COVID, was a lot of people want to spend more time together as family. We're kind of stuck with each other at the end of the day.
This is true.
Right? But it's more people listening together in a room. And while 2-channel is great for that, if I can have 5, 6, 7 of us and listen to it in all surround sound, why not? Right? Like it brings more families together, more friends together. We did it last night. Last night we did have a Taylor Swift watch party, which was super cool. Totally worth it. Highly recommend watching it.
Are you a Swiftie?
I am, yes, a Swiftie.
Yeah.
My daughter is also, she's worse than me, but significantly worse. It's actually funny that we bring her up because she's such a Swiftie. All she wanted for her birthday was a record player. That's all she wants.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know if you're ready for a record player. She's 12. On the little cartridge can get a little iffy for a 12-year-old, if you will. So I bought her all of the Taylor Swift records, all of the Taylor's versions, if you will, because.
Yeah, I heard there was a thing about the version, but keep going.
Big thing. So I got it, and I'm not necessarily ready to get her the record player yet, because you guys know me. I'm not going to just buy a $50 record player. I'm going to buy one that we know.
Yeah, that's actually good.
Well, which we have one. So I have a demo unit, which I used for Black Friday weekend at one of the store locations. I brought it over to do demos. I said, let me just play it in the house and see if she can learn how to use a record player. And it's called the JBL Spinner. Coincidentally, it's our Bluetooth record player that has the photo stage built into it, which is really cool. And she put it on like within 5 minutes of me showing her how to use it. She sat there like old school style. And mind you, she's 12 and, 12-year-old ADD brain on top of that. She's sitting there and she listened to every single record. She got it, the side finished. She flipped the record over, put the thing back on, listened to it again. And for that whole weekend, all she did was sit and listen to every single Taylor Swift track.
Oh my goodness.
The way it was intended originally, right?
Yeah.
Like listen to the artist all the way through the album, not just, pick a track, listen to it for 30 seconds, flip the next track to another artist, whatever. And it was really cool to see everything full circle come back around. Mm-hmm. And
that's awesome. That is very, very, very cool.
Taylor Swift is the one actually saving the world one stereo system at a time.
I can't believe. Yep.
She's
dropping bombs.
She changed the cinema game. I couldn't believe the first time I've ever seen a concert in a true cinema, like in an AMC.
Yeah.
And I was blown away during that moment. Well, luckily for us, we have a AMC Atmos, which is powered by JBL with, fun plug there. But I'm sitting there and at first you can see everyone's a little confused. Like they're like, well, should we stand up? Should we sing? Like, what should we do? It's a theater. And it was going into the first song. All of a sudden, like two younger girls up front stood up and started singing. And then all of a sudden it was just this mass lift of everyone to the point that I forgot I was in a theater.
Yeah.
I completely forgot. I'm like, oh man, I want to go to the bathroom, but I don't want to go to the bathroom. I want to keep sitting here and watch everyone sing and dance. And there's girls spinning in circles, doing things. There's people next to me dancing in the aisle and singing. It was just a crazy experience. I've never felt that before. And then I think about my work every single day. Like, holy cow, we can transition this into the home very easily. And she genuinely changed the game when it comes to that. So.
Well, and that's that's something that, you know, I've been thinking about for years. And I know there's like different apps on, you know, Apple TV and other things that you can stream concerts, but it's typically just in stereo. Like, I think that's a big thing that we'll probably see more of in the future because she's been so successful with it is, you know, I mean, I think Beyonce's about to release one, right?
Yep, the Renaissance one, yep.
Yeah, so that is awesome just because I wasn't able to go see that show in person live, and now I can create that experience in my home. Like, that just blows my mind that
and with your family and friends that maybe can't afford to go to the show, right? Like, you can have 5, 6, 10 people in the room with you and have a good time and enjoy the music that you love.
Well, and I think it speaks to kind of, you know, unintentionally, you know, I think we've kind of, you know, talked about where you're going, which is you want to be able to bring an experience, you know, back home with you that you weren't able to in the past for one reason or another. And I think that's one of those things that, you know, the world has kind of recognized is it's like, I'm not going to be able to make it everywhere. Right. And I think we've said it before, like you could spend, you know, 15 or 20 grand to, you know, go to Europe and have a really wonderful time for a couple weeks and all that kind of stuff. And then that experience is done. It's over.
Yep.
And you're stuck and you're like, I'm sure it was worth it. Right. And there's a value to that. But why wouldn't I want to be able to bring that experience every single time? Right. And now it's not just Europe. Now it's, you know, Hong Kong or Japan or South Africa, or like you can bring all of those experiences back to you. And I remember the first time I heard it said this way, that the stereo is the only time machine that man's ever made. And it's really true. If you get to a certain level, like it sounds like that person's right in front of you. And so I've heard Elvis in the room. He's been gone now for how many years, but like we've gone back in time to enjoy his music. You said the same thing with Taylor Swift. It's like, yes, that wasn't a live quote unquote performance, but there she is.
Yeah. I felt like I was in the stands just like anyone else inside a cinema.
And I think it speaks to where we are in technology, which is that you can accurately reproduce it if you do the right things the right way. All of a sudden it's like, oh no, now it's not just listening to a radio like they did back in the 50s or a turntable back in the 50s, and it comes out of this, you know, kind of squashed sound like this. It's like, no, this is the person in front of you.
Totally agreed.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's wild what we can do today as long as we do it right. But to your point of going into the future, it's music is going to grow more into the cinema space. So having, you know, that idea when designing your theater, you know, make sure you can play both, right? If it's good at music, it's probably going to be good at movies. So always consider that way. And I think that's huge. And going back to the Dolby Atmos spatial audio music stuff, the list is growing rapidly. If you go on Apple Music or Tidal, you see it's huge, and you see all the new artists popping out. The Billie Eilish album is actually really good too. I forgot what city I was in. Maybe it was Louisville. I can't remember. But one of the guys were like, have you listened to the new Kesha album in Atmos? I was like, there's a Kesha album?
That's awesome.
And we sat there and listened to it for like 30 minutes, and it was awesome.
Yep.
And that's another thing. Like, how often do you get to just sit there and waste 30 minutes of your life just enjoying music with some friends, right? Like,
yeah,
that's super cool. So I think that's the future. And there's a ton of spatial audio demo tracks you can listen to. But if you want to just, you know, dip your feet, that Tiesto Boom one would be the one.
That's where you start.
Yeah. And then obviously moving into movie tracks, there's, oh my God, there's so many.
Top Gun Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick is the most used one ever because it is amazing.
Yes. They did do a very good job.
Yes.
They did do a very good job.
Yes. So obviously that one. And there's many clips in that movie that you can watch, and I won't even go down that path.
Yeah.
Personal favorite that I like to do, especially when I'm doing trainings, because I need my trainings to be like stupid simple, right? Like, I don't want it to be overly complex. I don't want them to overly think like, oh, did that happen or did that not happen? It's like very obvious. Is James Bond, No Time to Die. It's chapter 4, if you need to know the exact chapter.
Nice.
It's one of the opening scenes before the opening credits roll, and it's a car chase scene where, you know, in James Bond fashion, he's driving away from the bad guys that are shooting him and whatnot.
Right.
What's really cool about that scene is when the system's done right, is first, as he's racing down to get to his end goal, you can hear him arguing with the girl in the car, and the center channel dialogue comes through very vividly, even though there's all this other craziness happening all around between gunshots or car scraping or explosions or whatnot. That still comes through down to the point that you hear them breathing when the system's done right. It's super cool. But when the subwoofers engage, which is my favorite thing about our systems, is how good we do bass, is there's a scene where he gets into a car accident in the middle of this European square. And when that car hits, that impact hits, you feel it through the room as if you were in the car.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then right from there, it kind of like goes silent for a second, like it gives you a second to catch your breath. And you hear all of it's like a European square, if you will. And there's all these like bells up above. And that's when the Atmos kicks in and you hear the bells all around the room, being ding, 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 all around. And it's so obvious that Atmos is working. And people always, no matter what, I'm a huge people watcher, always go,
huh, what was that?
Where's that coming from? Right. And that's the key to a good system, is they shouldn't be able to tell where it's coming from, because the imaging should be so good that it's just all around you. And, you know, not to circle back and really hit the nail on the head here, but that calibration method in the end is what really makes that happen for the people. And there's a couple other things that are cool happening, you know, a cool gunfight. Cool, not gunfights are not cool, but it's cool if you're an action person.
Yeah.
But you know, the bullets are flying. You feel the bullets go pew 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 through the room, because that's what bullets sound like. But then this guy comes out with this massive rifle. I'm not a gun person, so I couldn't tell you what kind of rifle it was, but he's shooting the window point blank, and it's a bulletproof window. And the detail that can come through, because, you know, whoever mastered this scene just did it so well, but you hear the splintering of the glass as it's hitting the window.
Oh, that's awesome.
But not only that, you feel the base of the impact as if we were a character in the car as the bullets hitting from the outside. It's a really cool scene, and it's a ton of fun for Dolby Atmos. But yeah, that's another good one.
Cool.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's time to get James Bond going back in this house. I have not watched those in a long time, and so
there's a lot.
Yeah, we need to go on a James Bond cinematic journey.
Yeah.
They were recently on like Hulu or Amazon or one of those, all of them in 4K. So,
you know, like
watching them from, you know.
Yeah, I think it was FX did like 20 years ago, 21 days or 20 days of 007 or something like that at Christmas time. And yeah, I think we're close enough to the holiday. We need to bring that back. So
make it happen. As far as other demos, movie demos at least, Ghostbusters is another one of those like stupid simple ones. And I like to keep everything nice and easy. So it's the opening scene of the most recent Ghostbusters, which apparently they're making a sequel to. I'm super excited.
Oh, nice.
But the real big thing on that is it's a dark and ominous scene, but there's some really cool Atmos imaging parts of it, if you will. So the first and foremost is when the car is, you know, running away from the ghost and they're driving to the house and he breaks through the gate, and you're like, all right, cool. The car broke through the gate and it sounds cool. But then all of a sudden the ghost is chasing him and you feel the ghost come through the middle of the room.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, wait a second, this is ghost like actually here? I think that's a really cool scene. And then obviously he gets into the house, and I don't want to ruin the movie for those who haven't seen it, but he gets in there, some stuff happens, but the footsteps of the ghost, you feel thump, 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 just like if he was walking across the room, which that's again where that imaging really needs to show off, because it should feel like it's walking across the room. It should just be thoof, silence, thoof, so on.
Right.
And that shows that off really, really well. And then cool explosions happen after that. But
that's a great call out too. And it's one of those things, like, I'm not a big horror movie guy, and but I remember when we first started, it was like I was an intern out in Los Angeles, and my boss looked at me and he goes, I want you to watch this scene with the sound off, just so you understand. And he put on something, I think it was like Scream or something, like just some generic. And I'm watching it, and I was like, man, this is actually really silly.
Yep.
Like, it was like the exact opposite of scary. I was like, I don't know why everyone's so scared. And it's like, then you turn the sound on and you're like, oh, and all of a sudden, like, that impact was right there, and you're going, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's happening. So Ghostbusters would be a good one. Yeah. That's a really awesome one.
There used to be a commercial on TV for some artsy school for film direction or whatever it was. And it was all about audio in a movie. I thought it was the greatest commercial ever. And I want to find it and like put it into my trainings going forward. but all it was a bumblebee flying through the air. And it was like, all right, here's a bumblebee without sound. Like, what's the bumblebee doing? And you're like, no, this is dumb. Why am I watching this? And then it was like, well, here's a happy bumblebee. And it had like just like happy music with it. Like, and they're like, oh, I love this bumblebee. This is awesome. But then it was like, this is the death bumblebee. And it had like ominous music playing in the background. And you were like, please don't sting me, even though bumblebees don't sting. You felt that way.
Right.
And it was the coolest commercial ever because it really shows off what the three of us do every day. Yep. And I thought that was really cool. But
yeah, bring that system to life.
And that's the reason why when I watch horror movies, I'm holding my ears the whole time so I don't hear all of the scary sounds. Because I'm a wuss.
Listen,
I don't watch them without holding my ears.
That's fair. You're braver than I am. I won't even go in the room. So.
What else from a demo standpoint? Music stuff, because I mean our stuff can play anything, right? It doesn't matter, music, movies, what have you. This demo has been used 1,000 times, and I'm sure you guys have used it 1,000 times. The reason I want to bring it up, though, is one, it's my go-to demo that I have so memorized that I don't ever have to think. It's just like autopilot go. But it also brings back a really cool story, which I won't give just for sake of time. I won't give you the full story. But you had mentioned about how audio is a time machine, right?
Yes.
And this demo, I got so good at it because when back in my sales days, I delivered this to a customer. It's like one of the first like really good 2-channel audio cells I've sold. And I share this story in some trainings, but what was so cool about it is I played the demo, and I'll explain what it is in a second. But as I went through the art of the demo process, right, which I'm sure you guys know inside and out, and I'm explaining it to the customer, I'm like, hey, I'm just going to play this song for you. I just need you to sit here and listen to this. And if it's okay, I'm going to dim the lights, but I really want you to understand what's about to happen, right? And I paint the picture, and I tell him, we're gonna listen to the track, and he was already connected to the track, which helped a lot. But when I play it, just understand there's going to be like 1970s AM FM radio that's going to sound like way off over here, and it's so obscenely bad. You're going to be like, Christian, why are you playing this for me? And I want you to understand that means the speakers are good because it's a 1970s AM FM radio. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, no, definitely not. But then, the lead singer is going to play the guitar and sing for us, but it's going to be front and stage right in front of you. And, there's a couple of things like he's going to clear his throat. He's going to cough.
Yep, I was going to say the cough.
And he's going to cough. And if the imaging's good enough, it's going to sound like it's going to fall on your shoe a little bit. Like don't get grossed out. It's cool, but it's just really good imaging. And then he's going to strum the guitar. He's going to play the guitar alongside to that AM FM radio that's playing way over there. And I do the demo for the guy. And afterwards, as I'm getting ready to lift the lights back on, and there was another salesperson in the room with me when this happened, but all of a sudden I see tears going down his face, like slow tears. And you kind of, in that moment, you're kind of like, oh man, what did I do? Like, this could be either really good
or really bad.
Like, what's going on? And so I turn the lights on. I'm like, hey man, so what'd you think? What'd you hear? And he's kind of sniffling, and he was like, that was amazing. And I'm like, oh, cool. What did you hear that made it so amazing? He said, I heard everything that you said, but most importantly, it brought me back to a memory of my father that I had not thought about in years. And he's telling me the whole story. And the memory was him and his dad didn't have the greatest relationship, but what they did do a lot together was go to concerts. And the one concert they went to like the most was Roger Waters' Pink Floyd, and this is a Pink Floyd track. And
Wish You Were Here.
Wish You Were Here. Yep. We're circling back to this. But his most fond memory of his dad was singing along with him at a concert to that song, Wish You Were Here. Man. And he's telling me the whole story. And then his dad had passed away like a couple months before this moment in time. And it was just all flooding him with emotion in that moment. And a good 2-channel demo track will turn you into that time machine and bring you back into that moment, because we as human beings are emotionally tied to music, whether we want to admit it or not. Yep. And that song was that for me, and now it's stuck in my head forever. I have it memorized, and I will do it for anyone who I'm unsure of what they might like. I know it's going to nail it somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really amazing too, because we talk about music being almost, transcendent a little bit. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about it. And you see this all the time in old folks' homes, is that people with dementia, or, they'll have, they get to a certain stage in life and they're not quite as responsive and things along those lines. But you put music on and all of a sudden they can sing every single note and they remember all the lyrics. And it's like, it's this amazing transformation. And if just for a few minutes, but it's like they've come back, so to speak, in such an amazing way. And I think it just speaks to the power of music in our lives. That just it is that truly one of the few places we have left where, you know, we can really kind of transcend kind of to that next level. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's all psychological. I mean, even like I ride airplanes every day, it feels like now, and even airplanes have progressed over time to now start playing low level calming music, but it's all like popular songs that people might know, and they play it in the background. And I after talking to some flight attendants, because that's like my best friends now, that's all I talk to, and they tell me they do this because so many people come onto an airplane with such high anxiety about being nervous about airplanes and heights and flying, even though it's one of the safest ways to transport.
Yeah.
But they come on, and what they found was having this calming, popular music playing in the background just naturally relaxes people without even knowing that it's happening. But that comes back to the same thing you were saying, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's about time. We should wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you very much, Christian, for joining us. This has been a ton of fun, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, time flies, man.
Yeah. So I guess what we'll say is please like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to reach out to us if you guys have questions, especially regarding JBL or synthesis. You know, we'd love to help design that system for you. And so feel free to give us that opportunity. If you want to, go ahead and ring the bell, like us, share with your friends, check us out on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. And of course, if you have questions, reach out as well. But we will see you guys on the next episode.
Awesome.